My name is Andy Miller, and I'm a Technical Standards Architect at IMS Global. Today I'm going to talk about how to get started with your CLR solution. Since you are watching a recording and may wish to repeat or skip some sections, I've added title cards to make it easy to find the sections you want. I'll start with a brief introduction to comprehensive learner records, then cover the data model and REST API defined in the standard. Then talk about publishing and consuming CLR data and working with IMS CASE. And finally, I'll wrap up with some resources that will help you get started. CLR stands for Comprehensive Learner Record. It is both an IMS standard and the name of the data model, and I'll be covering both today. CLRs are comprehensive in that they include both academic and non-academic learning achievements. We use the term achievement to mean anything that represents the accomplishment of a learning activity, from completing a course to mastering a skill, and from earning a degree to being issued a license. The CLR standard is a way to describe, capture, and securely transmit data about learning achievements. This results in a consistent data from multiple systems, so that learners, schools, and employers can work together to connect people with opportunities. CLRs are trusted records of achievement. They are machine readable. They can be verified to ensure they have not been tampered with. The author can be cryptographically verified. And the achievements can be aligned with any academic or skills framework so that all parties understand the data. CLRs are meant to be long-lasting. As a learner, you will collect CLRs throughout your life. Let me mention a few of the opportunities that are unlocked by the CLR standard. Students in K-12 and their guardians can track progress and identify new learning opportunities. Schools can display CLRs in a student progress dashboard and identify interventions to help the student be successful in college or career. Students in college can enhance their lifelong learning record with non-academic learning achievements, track their progress to graduation, and find new career opportunities. Job candidates can identify the skills needed to qualify for a new opportunity with a new or current employer. Employers can identify training to help the employee be successful in their current role, and find candidates with the skills and training needed to build a successful business. Now we'd like to talk about the standard itself. The CLR standard has been developed for a couple of years with input from a wide variety of experts. At the time of this recording, the standard is in candidate final public status, which is the last stage before final. The CLR standard is open to everyone and free to use. Essentially, the CLR standard is a data model and a REST API. Let's take a look. The highest level class in the CLR data model is the CLR. The CLR class has several properties. The learner that is the subject of the CLR, the publisher that issued or published the CLR, the date and time the CLR was issued, the name of the CLR, one or more achievement assertions, an optional set of pathway achievements, and instructions for making sure the CLR has not been tampered with or revoked since it was issued. The achievement class is the fundamental building block of a CLR. Each instance of the achievement class describes the achievement without referring to the people that will ultimately earn an achievement assertion. The issuer is the organization that both issues assertions of the achievement and participates in the verification of those assertions. The rest of the properties shown along the top of the diagram are used to define the achievement with both machine readable and human readable information. Achievements can also have associations with other achievements, so you can break down large achievements such as a university degree into smaller parts and keep the relationships intact. And achievements can be aligned to external frameworks, such as state standards in K-12, institutional competencies in higher education, and skill frameworks in the military and workplace. The achievement class is designed to represent a wide variety of curricular and non-curricular achievement types as shown in this list. And the list is extensible to accommodate rapid growth in digital credentials. The association types allow you to build both deep and wide relationships between the achievements. The assertion class is used to assert an achievement. That's why you'll hear me call it an achievement assertion. The assertion class has information that is specific to the recipient, such as who it was issued to, when it was issued, and the evidence and assessment results that back up that assertion. Note that the results can also be aligned to external frameworks. This means that the assertion can both attest to an achievement and assert how well the recipient did using machine-readable alignments to a shared framework. And like the CLR as a whole, each individual assertion can be verified to ensure it has not been tampered with or revoked since it was issued. Pulling it all back together, you'll remember that a CLR has a learner, a publisher, an issue date, a name, a set of achievement assertions, and verification instructions. Achievements can be associated with each other to form stacked micro-credentials. Achievements and results can be aligned with educational frameworks, including CASE, to create truly interoperable, machine-readable, lifelong learning records. CLRs can contain endorsements of assertion, achievements, people, and organizations. CLRs can contain evidence of achievement in the form of results and/or artifacts. CLRs can be verified as a whole to ensure the data has not changed or been revoked even years after the CLR was published. And individual assertions can be independently verified even if they are shared in a self-published CLR. Next, I'm going to describe the CLR REST API. The CLR REST API has three endpoints: get, post, and delete. Get is used to get the CLRs I'm authorized to access. Post is used to create or update a CLR I'm authorized to access. And delete is used to delete a CLR I'm authorized to access. All three of those I mentioned authorized to access. The API is protected by OAuth 2 access tokens. The API supports tokens issued through the client credentials grant and authorization code grant flows. Note that the systems that provide the CLR endpoints will need to provide an authorization server that is capable of responding to the authorized and token endpoints. Any commercial or open source OAuth 2 authorization server will provide these endpoints. In a moment, I'm going to demonstrate a sample application which makes use of the REST API to retrieve CLRs from a publisher and display them. One of the features of the sample application is the ability to verify the CLR as a whole and the individual assertions within the CLRs. You've heard me mention verification before and may have wondered what I meant. So let's take a look. In the diagram, you see an issuer, a learner, and a verifier. The issuer is almost certainly an organization such as a school, business, or military organization. In step 1, the issuer issues a CLR to the learner. There may be several issuers issuing CLRs to the learner. In step 2, the learner decides to share some of the CLRs and assertions with the verifier. In step 3, the verifier uses information in the shared data to verify that the information has not been tampered with and has not been revoked by the issuer. There are two methods of verification, hosted and signed. the issuer decides which method the verifier must use. With hosted verification, the verifier performs these steps. First, verify that the assertion ID meets the verification rules. For example, the domain must match the domain name in the rule. The verifier then gets a copy of the assertion from the issuer, replaces the assertion in hand with the copy returned by the issuer, and verifies that the revoked property is not true. If it passes all of these steps, then the assertion is considered verified. With sign verification, the verifier performs these steps. Again, verify that the assertion ID meets the verification rules. Then use the issuer's public key to verify the signature of the assertion. Then contact the issuer to get a list of revoked IDs. And then finally verify that the assertion ID does not appear in the list of revoked IDs. If it passes all of these tests, then the assertion is considered verified. Okay, let's take a look at that demo. This is a demo of a sample application that uses the CLR REST API to retrieve CLRs from a provider, that is, or from an issuer. This is a demo of the CLR Wallet. This is a sample application that can retrieve CLRs from a provider and then display them. And it provides some functionality that you might see in a real-life application using CLRs. So to get started, we're going to connect to, I'm already connected to a CLR provider. That's an application or service running on an issuer's website that can retrieve CLRs from that site. So I'm already logged in and connected to them using an identity called Alice Smith. So when I retrieve the CLRs from that provider, I'm going to retrieve the CLRs for Alice Smith. So let me go in here. You see I'm connected to this provider. It's called the CLR Reference Implementation. And it has a button here to refresh. When I click refresh, it's going to go out and talk to that and retrieve the CLRs it's authorized to access. And there are 3 of them. Let's go back up to the dashboard and take a look at that. There's one from Atlas University. These little pills show you how many achievement assertions are inside. This one has 57. One from the Project Management Consortium. There's 1. And one from Intel Corporation. And again, there's just 1 achievement assertion. I'm going to look inside of Atlas University. You can see some of the data that I showed before when I was describing the data model. This particular CLR was issued on June 12th, 2018. It has a name, Project Management Introductory Certificate. It was issued to Alice Smith, and it was published by Atlas University. And there's you'll see this button in here throughout this demonstration called Verify. So when we described verification, said there are 2 types, hosted and signed. This one happens to be signed. And when I click verify, it's going to perform those steps I described. It's going to check the ID. In this case, this is the ID. It's going to check the ID. Then it's going to use the publisher's public key to verify the signature of this, of the data that was behind this CLR. And then it's going to ask the issuer if this is for its list of revoked IDs, and then check to make sure that this ID is not in the list of revoked IDs. If it passes all of those tests, then it'll come back and tell us that it was verified. So I'm going to click on it. You can see it happens quite quickly. It did verify the signature, and this data we now know has not been revoked and has not been tampered with since the issuer created the CLR. Now let's go down and look at a little bit more at the achievement assertions. It looks like there's only one, but in fact there's 57. And when I click on the title of this one, the way this application works is it expands it. And we can see that this one assertion actually has several child assertions. One called competency demonstrated, and then one for each of 6 different courses. If we look back up here, see that this overall certificate is the 6-course certificate program that introduces project management fundamentals for a professional in the early stage of a project management career. Upon completion of this, the student will have fulfilled the educational requirements of the Project Management Consortium's Certified Project Management 1 credential. And we'll look at that in a second, where there's actually a second CLR that represents that credential. And they will be prepared to pass the CPM1 exam and then receive a professional certificate. Oh, I'm sorry, and they also receive a professional certificate issued by Atlas University and 12 units of continuing education. So that's what this top assertion is for. And then if I expand competencies demonstrated, you'll see that that actually was split up then into several child assertions, one for each of the institution's competencies that are touched on during this degree program or certificate program. And one of them was, for example, employ project management techniques. This particular credential or competency is covered actually in all 6 courses. And so there was the institution collected assessment results against this particular competency all along the way. And then when they issued the CLR, they created this achievement assertion with some results, which is a roll-up of all the data that they collected throughout the program. And if I open up that, you'll see that they, what this particular competency is that they can employ project management techniques. The allowed values were non-performance, basic, proficient, or distinguished, and Alice received proficient. I'm going to open up one of the courses, and you can see in that it also has children, one for each of the essentially assessments that occurred during the course. There was one after the Unit 1 discussion, one after the quiz. There's a project to complete a portfolio, and then there's a reflection. I'm going to open up that project portfolio. And you can see that this was, they needed to complete a status report, etc. And you'll notice that this is, all of these assertions, individual assertions, are also verifiable. I'm going to click on verify, and you can see that it in fact was verified as well. This application goes an extra step to verify that in fact the recipient of this here is in fact the exact same recipient of the whole CLR. Let me go back up to the top and we'll take a look quickly at the other 2 CLRs. This one is issued by the Project Management Consortium, and it represents that it's an award that is given after they complete the exam for CPM level 1. It is also verifiable. And then one more, and this is from Intel Corporation. Alice, after she completed her certificate program, she got a job with Intel, and Intel sponsored her to attend a code camp, which is represented here. And this one is also verified, but in this case it's verifiable. In this case it's hosted verification. So if you remember, hosted verification means when I click on this, it will check, I'm the verifier right now, and when I click on verify, it's going to check that the domain name is okay in the ID. Then it's going to get a fresh copy of this CLR and compare and throw away the one that we're looking at right now and use the fresh copy that it gets. And then it checks whether revoked has been set to true. So let's go click on verify. It's going out and getting it. It got it, and it says refresh the page so we can see the new version. In this case, actually, there is no visible difference, but that just is a reminder that, in fact, it threw away the copy it had in hand and replaced it with the fresh copy that it got. This is true even 6 months, a year, 10 years later. Okay, once we have all of those, all three, so now we have 3 CLRs in our wallet. One of the other things that this particular sample application will do is let Alice combine information or the assertions from different CLRs and build a new custom CLR. So let's take a look at how that might work. Let's create a collection. In this case, I'm going to call it my project management CV. And if you'll remember, the Atlas University CLR was an introductory certificate for project management, so I want to include those. Then I got a certification from PMC. I want to include that. But I'm actually going to leave out the developer bootcamp. And let's create a new custom CLR. And then while we're at it, let's create another one that includes everything. Let's click all 3 and create that. Go back up here. We now see that we have 2 curated collections. And if I click in the project management CV, you'll see there's 58 assertions now, including both the certificate and the certification. And it's highlighted yellow because, in fact, the publisher is now Alice Smith. And it has not been set up for verification. So you can't verify the CLR as a whole. But if I open up any one of these assertions, you see that they can be verified and still do verify. The other capability that this app has is the ability to share or create a link to a particular CLR that Alice can share with another person or organization. I'm going to create a link. I'm going to create a link to both my project management CV and product management CV. Back up here. We now have those. And I'm going to, this time when I click on it, you'll see that I could display it before. In fact, when I do that, you'll see a display. You click on it, I display it, and you can see all the menus. On this other one, it's actually a it's actually a shareable link and does not, when I click on it, it's going to display, but does not share any of the menuing or anything else, or give me access to any other information other than the one CLR that was self-published that Alice chose to share with me. So that's a sample application of the REST API being able to retrieve CLRs from a provider or a variety of issuers, maybe reassemble those the assertions in those CLRs into collections or custom CLRs, and share those out with potentially another university I wanted to attend, or a workplace opportunity, or the military. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about how to get started. This is divided into 3 sections: how to get started with publishing, how to get started with hosting, and how to get started with displaying. And I'll explain a little bit more about each of those as we get to them. Starting with how to get started with publishing, you will be building essentially an issuer platform. And that as an issuer, you are responsible for defining the achievement types that you will be issuing, and their hierarchy. Some things to think about when you're doing that is, what properties will your consumers need? That is, the people that will be using this information to make decisions. What kinds of, what information will they need to know about each of the achievements that you are going to represent? How will you present evidence about those achievements? So achievements can, when you assert an achievement, you can attach evidence in the form of artifacts or as results, or both. And it's good to think about how you're going to present that evidence when you design the achievements. And how will, or rather, will you align your achievements with an external framework, such as CASE? Doing so will actually make your achievements much more interoperable, because frameworks are, it's like a vocabulary that is understood by a broad audience. So not only, so you could take your private sort of descriptions, or your in-house descriptions of achievements, and align them to an external framework, and then anybody else receiving that data who understands the external framework will know what your achievements mean. Once you've defined the achievement types and hierarchy, start filling in the achievement details that you're going to include, and also the information, split it out so that the information about the assertion is also captured. The best way to do this, or the way we've seen people be successful, is by using a spreadsheet and actually listing out each achievement and the assertion of that achievement, and with all the properties that you're going to specify for each. The achievements can actually then be captured in a database and just used or referenced when you make the assertion. Define or determine what kind of verification you're going to support. CLR supports both hosted and signed verification. We went over that a little bit ago, but basically with hosted verification, the consumer that is reading this information, that wants to verify it, will make a GET call back to your issuer platform, asking for a fresh copy of the assertion, or CLR. With signed, you will, when you assert the achievement, you're going to sign that assertion. And when the consumer receives it, they will use your public key to verify that the signed assertion is valid. And finally, or rather next, you will probably want to create a catalog of the achievements and their relationships to each other through associations and to the external framework. Basically, you have to capture all of this data from your spreadsheets into some form that you can call up when you need to form a CLR. Then you need to implement the API that can send CLRs to a host platform. And you will need to implement an OAuth 2 authorization server to support if hosted verification of CLRs, just for the hosted verification of CLRs. So if that's something that your platform is going to be capable of doing, is providing verification for hosted CLRs, you'll need to also have an OAuth 2 authorization server. And if you're going to support signed verification, you'll need to develop a mechanism to do that. Basically, the ability to sign the assertion or CLR, and the ability to share your public key for that assertion. Now let's talk a little bit about hosting. I mentioned hosting in the prior group. The host platform basically has the ability to accept or get CLRs from other platforms. To do that, it's pretty straightforward. You just need to, you do need to implement an OAuth 2 authorization server. That server can be an off-the-shelf or open source product, or you can code it yourself. You'll need to support basically two endpoints, the authorized endpoint and the token endpoint. Once you have an authorization server, you'll need you also need a mechanism to store the CLRs that you either receive or get from another platform. And you'll need to implement the APIs to actually get the CLRs or accept them from the other platforms. And finally, let's talk a little bit about getting started with displaying. Displaying is really displaying and verifying. So to do this, you'll need to implement a displayer platform. You'll need to implement the API for retrieving CLRs from another platform. And then you'll need to implement the consumer code, that is the code that to request the verification steps. So for hosted verification, for example, your platform will need to be able to make that GET request back to the issuer to get the assertion or CLR. And if it for signed assertions and CLRs that you have, you'll need to implement the code that can take a public key and verify the signature of the signed assertion or CLR. So that's in a very quick overview, how do you get started as a publishing or issuing platform, as a hosting platform, and as a displaying / verifying platform. Now I'd like to talk a couple minutes about the resources that are available to help you implement the CLR standard. The number one resource is the IMS CLR landing page. That's at www.imsglobal.org/CLR. On that page, you will find basically all the links that you're going to see in this slide and the next, plus some other links to other IMS standards and policies, procedures, project groups, how to become a member, all those wonderful things. The main documents on the landing page that I'd like you to look at are the CLR specification, and this goes through both the data model and the REST API binding. The implementation guide, which is full of helpful information on how to implement the various parts of the standard for specific circumstances. And the conformance certification guide. Once you have a product that's working, we'd really like it if you had that product certified, and we could share that information, that certification, with the rest of the world. There are also a number of developer-specific resources, including a support portal at support.imsglobal.org, which has FAQs and does have helpful information about certification. It's actually a live support portal, so people are looking at that, and if you do have questions, especially about certification, you can put them there and someone will answer them. There are GitHub repositories associated with CLR. These are for members only. And we have both reference implementations, sample applications, and tools such as the spreadsheet I mentioned earlier on how to map out your achievements. The reference implementations are also running at dc.imsglobal.org. Members have access to those reference implementations and the sample applications all through that one portal. And the reference implementations not only implement the specification in a conformant way, but you can use them to develop your own applications by basically talking to the reference implementations. If you are writing a consumer endpoint, a consumer of one of the endpoints, you can use the reference implementation of the provider to make sure that your code is working. And we have open API files for both the client and the server, or rather it's one open API file which you can use to generate client and server applications in a variety of languages. Well, I hope you found something useful out of this presentation, getting started with your CLR solution. My name is Andy Miller, and I look forward to working with you on your CLR solution. Thank you.